Hello YouTube viewers, I just wanted to show the results of this melt drop bar experiment here. This was allowed to settle overnight, and it does have a little bit of gold in it, but there's not going to be enough there to make what I did in my last video worthwhile. Like I said, there's going to probably be less than 1/10 of a gram here, but I just wanted to update you in all fairness and show you that there is gold in those melt drop bars, but not very much. To do some refining here, here's the solution from the melt drop bars. This is going to have some free nitric in it, so what I'll do is add some silver to that, put some silver in solution with it to use up all the available free nitric. This is some silver that I've been putting off processing, filtering it out right here so I can get it on some copper and get it cemented out. Over here I've got a couple of jars of silver solution just sitting here. I need to get this done. Here's some cement silver. I need to get this out of those solutions, melt it up into some shots so I can get my silver cell running again. Then over here I've got these hard disk platters. These will be my next video here. They're glass hard disk platters from laptop PCs, and I've got a blender here I bought at the thrift store for $4. I did an experiment this morning and ground one of them platters up in the blender, and that seems to work okay. What I'm going to try to do is get all these things ground up in the blender and then see if we can get some platinum out of them. Alright, just to demonstrate how I'm going to get the nitric that's unused in this clean copper solution. Probably going to have a little zinc in it too, because I think we processed brass. This is one of my silver jars. It's got some undissolved silver in it, and I just poured this liquid off into this filter here so that we could get the solution down into the flask, get all the solids filtered out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, this is from the melt drop bar experiment. It's going to have free nitric acid in it. So I'm pouring that right into my silver jar here that has undissolved pieces of silver so that we can use up all the available nitric acid out of this solution. I could just process this as waste, but there's free nitric in here that I want to try to use up, dissolving my silver. I got to dissolve the silver anyway. In fact, I've got a dish here of silver that I'll heat up to redness and put in that jar to help dissolve the rest of the nitric out of here also. Burning off the combustible materials off the metal before we put it in the acid is very important here. It burns off oils, greases, wax, and anything else that will burn before we put it in the acid, and this will save us from having a bunch of goop in our solution that clogs up filters and creates problems for us later on. Now that all the combustible material's been burnt off, I add the burnt silver into that solution to use that silver to consume the rest of the free nitric acid that's in the solution. Cover it up here and put it up on the heat. I only filled the jar halfway full of the solution because I wasn't sure how much nitric was in there, and I didn't want to have a boil over. Here I'm adding the rest of the solution now that I know how it's going to react. There was a little bit of sediment in the bottom of the flask there, so I'll just rinse that into my filter, and and save that. It might have a little bit of precious metals in it, and then I'll save the filter and process it later on. If you look down here at this silver, you'll see that there's a little bit of bubbling reaction going on. What that tells me is there's still active nitric acid in this solution, and it will be consumed by the presence of that silver in the solution. Why let the waste bucket have that nitric acid when I can use it to dissolve some of my silver? This is some filters that I've saved up, gold refining filters. Put them in that 5-gallon bucket. I've got some more over here. These are from silver refining. What I'll do is burn these up and recover the precious metals out of them. If you look over here at what I'm doing in this funnel right here, this is after dissolving my silver. I've got some residue left in that filter. Here's the filtered silver solution. Notice how clear it is. What I'll do is once I get this filter rinsed out real good with some distilled water, I'll put it up there with the rest of those filters and save it, and then recover the precious metals out of here. What we're doing here is this is the solution that I used when I was doing the melt drop bars. It had free nitric in it. I added silver to it, put it on the heat until all the free nitric was used up. And now what I'm going to do is I'm filtering off this solution that's full of silver, and I'll recover the silver out of this solution. Here I have two solutions from my gold refining operations. You look down at the bottom here, there's some sediment. That's going to be gold, precious metals, probably mostly gold. These solutions are going to contain nitric acid, palladium, possibly some platinum, and some silver. And what I'm going to do today is get the nitric acid out of here so that we can process these for the precious metals that they contain. Alright, the first thing I want to do here is I've got some silver that's been cleaned up here, and I'm just going to grab a handful of it and put it in our melt dish here so we can take it out and burn it and get all the impurities burnt off of it before I add it to my reaction vessel out there. Now what I'm going to do is burn this silver with a torch and add it to this vessel here that I just emptied out into my filter here. We're going to burn this right now so that we can burn off all the combustible materials on here, so I don't get a bunch of goo building up in my reaction vessel here. This will burn off the oils and greases from this metal and then make it dissolve cleanly. I've heated the metal until everything burnt off there that will burn. I'm just going to add it to this reaction vessel here. I'm going to grab one of my jars of silver here. Like I said, this is going to have nitric acid, a little bit of gold. It's going to have a lot of silver in it, and maybe some platinum group metals such as palladium and platinum. So I can pour this without getting in the way of the camera there. I can't, of course, at that angle. I'm just going to pour this metal, or this solution, in on top of that burnt silver. The first step in refining this silver is burning it and then dissolving it. Look down at the bottom of this container where that silver was. You'll see there's some residue, some mud down in the bottom down there. That's going to be gold. And what I'll do is I'll rinse this out into a filter and then save the filter paper and recover that gold later on in a separate video. Put a cover on this. I'm going to set it up on some heat over here. And we'll heat this up until no more fumes are produced in there. That will tell me that all of the excess nitric has been consumed. Now you can see right away that the nitric is starting to react with that sterling silver that I added. This is the first step in recovering all the material that's of value out of those solutions. The first step is getting the excess nitric acid out before I go to cementing the silver on copper. Alright, this solution here is a lot lighter. I think that it contains a little bit more nitric acid than the other solution did. So I'm going to pour some of this in very carefully. Well, now that I'm looking at this reaction here, maybe I better hold off on this. This is going to have a higher concentration of nitric in it. So let me wait until this calms down. Looks like it's starting to bubble up pretty good there. I don't want to add too much free nitric in there with all that silver, and it's heating up and cause this thing to boil over and cause loss of metal. This reaction has calmed down quite a bit now. It's been on the heat now for a couple hours. And I'm going to add some of this other solution to it. And remember, what we're doing here is twofold. First, what I'm doing is consuming all of the excess nitric acid that are in these solutions. No use throwing this excess nitric away. And the way I do that is add silver to this jar here, and then let the silver react with the nitric that's in these solutions and consume the rest of it. And that's the first goal here. The second goal is the first step in refining silver after I burn it is to dissolve the silver. So that's the second goal that we're trying to accomplish here, dissolving the silver. These two solutions have had all of the silver cemented out of them. So now what I'm going to do is siphon off the clear blue copper nitrate solution, and I'll get the pieces of copper out of here, out of both of these, and reuse them to cement more silver. This copper solution here is a waste solution. All the precious metals have been removed from it. And I'll just get this out of the way now. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to, the solution that I just filtered here is going to have lots of silver in it, and probably it's green colored. So there may be some palladium in here. So now what I'm going to do is reach down in here and grab some of these pieces of copper, transfer them into this empty beaker here, and we'll be adding our silver solution to this jar to get all the precious metals cemented out of this solution here. Alright, let's move these two beakers up here out of the way so we got some room here. And what I'll do now is we'll get some solution inside this beaker here and cement out the precious metals out of this solution, which is going to be mostly silver, into this beaker here that's got copper in it. First thing I want to do is add some distilled water to this. If I tried to put that highly concentrated silver solution directly on the copper, What I've had happen in the past is it passivates, causes the silver to plate real thick on that copper, and then the cementing reaction stops. So I add about 1,500 ml of distilled water, and now I can add the silver concentrate solution, and this will cause the silver and other precious metals to begin cementing out immediately. Alright, just to review, in this jar for my gold refining operations is some solution that contains silver, and it has excess nitric in it. I transferred some of that solution into this jar that has metallic sterling silver in it to consume that excess nitric and to put the silver in solution. Once this gets done, I'll allow it to cool and then filter it off, get the solution, put it into a jar, and add some copper, and cement the silver out of the solution. Once this operation is complete here, the solution will turn from green to blue like this. Then I'll take these blue solutions, add them to my waste treatment, and process that blue copper solution as waste. Then I'll get the cement silver out into a funnel, rinse all the blue solution off of it, and then put it into a Corningware dish, dry it off, and I'll end up with some powdered silver, some cement silver. I'll take this cement silver, I'll melt it in my Kerr electric furnace, pour it into water to form granules, and then I'll run the granules through my electrolytic silver cell and get pure silver crystal. Here's something that's important that needs to be pointed out. If you notice my beaker that I added the copper to and then put the solution in there to start cementing out the silver, it's heating up. The silver has become bloated and it's floating to the top. You can see some bubbling reaction going on in there, and we got some fumes up here. What that means is this is something that I was trying to avoid. It's just a little bit, but we can avoid this completely by dissolving out or getting rid of the nitrate back here in this operation back here before we go up here and start trying to cement the silver on the copper. Okay, what's happening here is there was a little bit of excess nitric left in that silver solution. Both silver and copper are soluble in nitric acid. So when I put the copper in there, it immediately begins to dissolve a little bit from the excess nitric that's in there, and the silver starts to cement out onto the copper. The excess nitric in here will immediately redissolve the silver, put it back into solution, and then it'll cement back out on the copper, go back into solution, cement back out on the copper, And that will happen over and over in there until all that excess nitric gets consumed. That's why it's important to get all of the nitric out of there before we add the copper to cement the silver out. It's been about an hour since I started cementing this solution out on copper, and as you can see, the solution is turned from green to more of a blue colored. It's not bubbling up so much. It's not heating up like it was earlier. And there's less fumes accumulating in top there, so that what that means is the excess nitric acid that was in there has been consumed now. And now what will happen is all the silver will cement out onto that copper. This really isn't that big of a problem. It just it's more beneficial to get all the copper out, or all the nitric acid out of the solution back here, dissolving the silver first, before we put the copper in that solution, so that we don't needlessly consume the copper and cause that silver to redissolve like it did earlier. It took about an hour for this to calm down. It's okay now. Once I get the cement silver run through the silver cell, I'll get this pure silver crystal. It's absolutely pure elemental silver metal. And that will conclude the video. Thanks for watching.